to talk today about data sharing in American Indian communities. So first I'll start off with what data sharing is. So data is information or facts that have to do with many different things: environmental data, personal data, demographic data, health-related data, any kind of data that would help a governmental body or an institution make decisions. Now, as far as data sharing, it's kind of a new concept here in the United States. In the past, the technology to look at large groups of data and compare large groups of data statistically didn't exist. Also, since it didn't exist, it wasn't possible to interrogate it or look at that data to see if people really had commonalities between groups. So it's kind of six of one, half a dozen of another, but they evolved together. And as they evolved and we had the possibility and the technology to share data, it's become very clear that you can use these big data sets, merge them together, and make justifiable comparisons between groups and places and things like that. So the pros of data sharing that is offered by scientists and statisticians. So statisticians take all these numbers and they look at the data, and they basically clean up the data and make it comparable between different sets of data or different groups of people, different environmental geographies, those kinds of things. And the thinking has, not only because a lot of research is publicly funded, that it's right to share data, that people shouldn't keep data for themselves and not let other people look at it. It's called transparency and being upfront and making sure everybody gets the use out of the taxpayers' money. The cons, at least in terms of American Indians, is that a lot of the research has to do with long-range plans or long-range questions. And as you all know, the need for quicker solutions is at a premium here in American Indian country. So a lot of this research has to do with altruistic kind of questions or studies that would help everybody on the planet. But here in American Indian communities, we're all domestic dependent nations, and we want something that's going to help us now, either in the short term or at least the intermediate term. Everything now is based on evidence. So you have evidence-based medicine, evidence-based policy, evidence-based law, and there simply isn't enough evidence in Native American communities, and we have to shore up this lack of evidence to get funding and to do research. Also, in terms of healthcare and other kinds of funding, many reservations are severely underfunded, while this kind of research, merging big data, is incredibly overfunded. So American Indians would do well to ask the question, can some of that funding be used for the apparent lacks that we have in our communities? These lacks in the community are what we're trying to fix. So in these data sharing agreements, we want to ensure that the partnership is two-way. So for them, what they're going to get is more robust genetic statistical analysis by removing some of the guesswork or the assumptions they have when they do this kind of work. And for us, we are looking for proof. One is proof that there are these holes, data gap holes, social disparity holes, lots of different things that don't exist in our community that do exist for the majority community. So in these data sharing agreements, we want help from them to prove some of these things, not only in the social determinants area, but in terms of our genetic reaction to pharmaceuticals or what have you. I don't want to seem like I'm down on data sharing as a scientist. I think data sharing is a good idea for the reasons that I stated at the beginning. But I think that the pros and the cons, could be combined creatively if tribes want to invest the mental capital into it and the staff to do it. So there's billions of dollars going into this opportunity of collecting big data, and tribes could use that money to help other things in the community, specifically things that are lacking, like infrastructure, education, business, all that kind of thing. So I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility to ask for some of that money. One way to use that money is to increase institutional memory on the reservation. Institutional memory is the embodied knowledge in professional individuals and the embodied knowledge that are in either digital or paper archives. That information and that data carries through in the lifelong history of a community. You cannot put genomic data and make a conclusion in a vacuum. You need all sorts of other data, and there's a lot of data gaps. There's a lot of data missing in American Indian country, and if you don't have that data, you can't make any kind of meaningful conclusion. So by pairing these concepts of pros and cons of data sharing, you could convince people that two things need to happen together. One is that their original proposal of why you need to share data with the faster answers and transparency. A lot of people resist the idea of compensating American Indians for past grievances. This is the opportunity to get in on the ground floor of something, a new technology, both big data and genomics. Instead of paying for something that happened in the past, why don't you front load it at the beginning during the data sharing agreement? Say that anything that comes in the future that might benefit the researchers or a company or the United States, American Indian tribes, part of the data sharing agreement, they get some of that money. In terms of trying to figure this all out, I would stick to the model that American Indian nations are domestic dependent nations. And right now there's 3 countries, Mexico, India, and China, that have nationalized not only their human genomes, but the genomes of all the plants and animals in their country. And so they do collaborate with the United States, and they collaborate with countries in Europe. So there must be some agreements that they have with sharing data and sharing information that already exist that American Indians can use to pattern their own data sharing agreements after. We have a lot of talent in our American Indian communities. We just have to find those people and give them the resources to do their work, and we can train new researchers that have an indigenous perspective and want to help their communities, and they can come up with new solutions to use the data and make these data sharing agreements more fair and equitable.